It's SuperTalk Outdoors with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk
From the Foundation
Mississippi.
Studio on Biloxi's Back Bay. Welcome to a special Christmas on the Water edition of SuperTalk Outdoors, where we celebrate every Monday at lunchtime the world-class outdoors of the state of Mississippi. It's Christmas week. Merry Christmas. We're going to spend some time today focused on fishing in coastal Mississippi. You don't typically think about fishing in coastal Mississippi in the wintertime. But fishing is great this time of year, especially in the backwaters of the coast. It's just a little different than normal. We're going to be talking more about that here shortly with a very special guest. I want to thank you for joining us on the powerful SuperTalk Mississippi Network. If you're listening on Facebook or YouTube or your favorite podcast, it's December 20th, 2021. You know, Mississippi is the capital of the outdoors in this great state, great United States. From the incredible salt and freshwater fishing to the turkey and deer and duck hunting and other outdoor activities, so many different amazing activities. We're so lucky to live here, and this show celebrates that. By the way, like I said, I'm here in the Foundation Studio. The Foundation is officially called the Foundation for Wildlife Fisheries and Parks. They're not to be confused with the Department of Wildlife Fisheries and Parks. This is a group of dedicated volunteers from across the state of Mississippi who raise money that not only helps the Department of Wildlife Fisheries and Parks, but they also are involved in making investments in important projects and important issues, by the way, that are about helping us put our future generations in a situation where they can enjoy the outdoors as much as we do. I can't tell you how pleased I am to be associated with the outstanding volunteers of the Foundation. People like John Taylor and Chris Gertz and Roy Noble Lee Jr., Peyton Self, and so many other dedicated leaders. We're really lucky to have the Foundation in this state. As I do every week, I want to thank my friend Steve Azar, singer-songwriter, the music and cultural ambassador for the state of Mississippi, and the host of In a Mississippi Minute here on SuperTalk, for his song, One Mississippi. It's the theme song of SuperTalk Outdoors. That song will hopefully become the state song for Mississippi. You need to look it up. Go do a search for Steve Azar, One Mississippi on YouTube, and you'll see why I'm so high on that song. This is an incredible time of the year to be an outdoorsman or woman in Mississippi. I spend a lot of time at my place up in the Mississippi Delta this time of year, duck and deer hunting with my sons Jordan and Justin, and my son-in-law Keith Williams and his father, and so many close friends like my friends Mark Creech and Terry Waldrop and Travis Dunn and many others. All over Mississippi, friends and family are out in the woods taking it all in. So many of you are hunting and fishing, and you're part of hunting and fishing traditions. Those traditions have been passed on to you through so many generations. Those traditions are really special to you, and this is the time of year to reflect on that, to thank God for our families, our friends, and the great Mississippi outdoors. You know, last week we had a conversation where we talked about the powerful generational outdoors traditions in Mississippi. And Ramsey Russell was just absolutely an excellent guest. He has a company called GetDucks.com. You can look it up, GetDucks.com. It was really a fascinating conversation. Ramsey has duck hunted in over 6 continents, but he still sees the Mississippi Delta as the center of the duck hunting universe. If you missed that conversation, go to the SuperTalk Outdoors Facebook page or the SuperTalk Outdoors YouTube channel, or you can go to your favorite podcast and just do a search, SuperTalk Outdoors. You'll be glad you did. You'll see other shows there, shows with Will and Jimmy Freemus, Brad Ferris, Toxie Hayes, Deer University's Dr. Bronson Strickland had a great conversation with a group of women who love the duck hunt together called the Swamp Witches, Duck Guide Chuck Cage, so many others. It's Christmas time in Mississippi's outdoors. I have a show on SuperTalk Gulf Coast called Coast View. I had the pleasure of visiting from time to time with one of the captains down here, Captain Sonny Schindler of Sure Thing Charter. He's our very special guest today. Sonny's going to be chatting with me about all the kind of saltwater fishing that's available here in coastal Mississippi, especially in the wintertime. Anyway, Sonny, how you doing this morning, my friend?
I'm good, buddy. How you been?
I've been great. I mean, this is a cool time of the year, and as a charter boat captain, you don't necessarily stop this time of year, do you?
We don't. Some of our guides either turn into hunting guides or they just hunt, and they are killing me right now because even though we've had some really good fishing, they're sending us all the pictures from the woods, the ducks and the deer and the hogs, and I really
Yeah.
really love to fish, but I'm itching to get in the woods, but I'm certainly not roughing it down here. We're having a great time fishing this winter. It's been relatively mild, and the fish have been really cooperative. The water's finally getting really really good and salty, so it's good. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't ready to get in the woods.
Hey, so my friend Reed Geis, he lives on Biloxi's Back Bay, not far from me, like toward from where I live toward the Ocean Springs Bridge. He caught a tarpon on his pier the other day. Now, look, people say, "Oh, that's so unusual," and it is unusual. We used to have a lot of tarpon. It was a small one. My son Jordan, over the years, has caught 3 or 4. He hooked one about 40 or 50 pounds once, and got a few jumps out of it in Biloxi's Back Bay. Um, but Reed was thrilled. He had a dilemma. Actually, he had to decide, okay, this is a tarpon on a fly, and this could be a state record. What do I do? Do I keep it or do I release it? And he said, man, by the time I decide, it's going to be dead. So he decided to go ahead and release it. But that's exciting to hear stories like that, isn't it?
It is, and I've fished with Mr. Reed. He's such a vibrant guy. I mean, his worst day of fishing is probably more exciting than one of our best days. But yeah, the variety and you know the winter, we're so fortunate here with all the abundance and variety of fish, but the winter, and look, I hate cold. I'm a skinny little guy, and I'm not made for cold. I wear 6 layers to go outside when it's 40 degrees, and but over the years I've really come two things. I've really come to be a morning person. I used to hate the mornings, the wee hours, and I still hate cold, but I've learned to tolerate it
Yeah.
because of the fishing. In
Right.
the
The
offshore
fish is so
world,
good. Yeah.
the
Go
cold
ahead.
weather meant wahoo, and this
Yeah.
time of year in the inshore it means redfish and sheephead. And you just learn to deal with it if you want to get on them.
Well, we're going to talk. We're going to talk about where you come from and some of the experience you have and the great fishing that we have access to here in coastal Mississippi. But one last comment about Reed Geis. My son Jordan, Reed has fished with us for many years. We've caught a couple of state records together on my boat. Reed, my son says of Reed that he has a low threshold for amazement. Isn't that a great description of Reed? I love people like that though, who never get numb to how special it is. Every opportunity to enjoy the outdoors is an exciting moment to take it all in, and he's got like a childlike curiosity with the moment, and there's something that's just magnetic about that, isn't it?
It is, and they just add to the experience. When it's a good day, it becomes a great day with a person like that, and when it's a bad day, it becomes a good day. So, bad meaning weather or slow fishing or slow bite, but those
Yeah.
people are what keeps my batteries charged.
Yeah.
It's infectious.
So, Sonny, I want to just tell people a little bit about you. You went to St. Stanislaus in Bay St. Louis and the University of Southern Mississippi. You got a degree in journalism, which is, I'm a former media executive, so was publisher of newspapers and understand the role of journalism. But what you've done is you've leveraged your love of the outdoors and your experience in the outdoors to tell really Mississippi's story over and over again with Saltwater Sportsman and Sport Fishing Magazine and USA Today and M Fisherman and Louisiana and Mississippi Sportsman. Really, the list goes on and on. And we really appreciate you for that. You also spent a lot of time volunteering your time in research organizations, on advisory committees, anything you can do to help not only preserve it, but to enhance our ability to enjoy our coastal outdoors. And again, we appreciate you for that too. But one of the things that's really fascinating about you is you spent some time in Venice. And when we come back from the break, I want to talk about why that was important to you, as you learned a lot about how to fish for tuna and marlin and amberjack and wahoo and dolphin and grouper and snapper and all these other species. And then now your love of the backwaters. But really what I want to tell people about is this incredible fisheries that we have access to from right here in coastal Mississippi. When we come back, we're going to tell you that part of the story, and then we'll switch gears a bit and talk more about fishing in the winter in coastal Mississippi. We'll see you after this break.
Outdoors. It's Super Talk Outdoors with Ricky Mathews on Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors from the Foundation Studio, and I'm really pleased today. The special Christmas on the Water edition. Well, I might add Christmas on the coastal Mississippi waters with my friend Captain Sonny Schindler of Sure Thing Charters. He's a regular guest of mine on Coast View, and we just talk about our love of the outdoors and what we have access to here in coastal Mississippi. So, Captain Sonny, we really appreciate you joining us today. So what we're going to do in just a second is we're going to give you a little bit more details about what kind of fishing we have access to from coastal Mississippi. If you fished here, you know a lot of what we're going to be sharing with you. This would be a great reminder. But if you've not spent any time down in coastal Mississippi, I think you're going to enjoy this opportunity to learn more. Sonny, when I went to break, when you got out of school, you spent a lot of time down in Venice, but that was literally an incredible spot, Venice, Louisiana, to learn how to do backwater and offshore fishing, wasn't it?
It was, and it was baptism by fire for me, because I really didn't have hardly any experience offshore, but the company and the guy that brought me on, he was excited about that. Captain Scott with Paradise Outfitters, he said, yeah, that's fantastic. You don't have any bad habits. I can mold you and train you the way I do things. And it was fun, but I learned so much from so many different people, different boats, different tactics, different areas. It was, and not just the fishing and the tactic side, but how to do things with a charter business, how to market it. And I learned from other people's mistakes and other people's successes. You try to just keep your eyes and ears open, keep your mouth shut sometimes.
Hey, so let me give people a little bit of geography. You think, of course, they can go to the map. They can go to their map on their phone and put in Venice, Louisiana. You'll see where it pops up. But for people who don't know where it is while they're listening to this show, if you were to leave my house on Back Bay and come out underneath the Ocean Springs Bridge, you could take a left. You could head toward the east and be at Orange Beach in about 80 miles. So, in fact, when I leave from here to go to Orange Beach, I can beat my wife there in the boat when she's going by car. Okay. Or I can take a right and head west and go to Baptiste Collet. Baptiste Collet is an entrance point that brings you into the Mississippi River and eventually to Venice, and just a little over 80 miles as well. And if you go to Orange Beach, a whole set of opportunities from a fishing point of view, and then go to Venice, it's an unbelievable set of fishing opportunities. Of course, to fish the waters that you fished when you were in Venice from Mississippi, you don't have to go to Baptiste Collet and go to Venice. You can just head south, just continue to head south and go off the mouth of the Mississippi River to salt domes in the vicinity of what we call the horseshoe rigs, or further out to some of the really deep oil rigs and platforms that are out there. But man, when you add it all up, Sonny, what we have access to from coastal Mississippi is truly some of the best fishing in the world, isn't it?
It is, and it's all within reach. Same thing with us here. We have guys from here that will take a boat to Venice, stay on a houseboat or a camp, fish, stay the weekend or a couple days, and come back. But maybe stop at Gosher or Breton in the Chandelier Islands and fish there, or stop in the Louisiana Marsh, hit some of the shallow field, go to Venice and hit the floaters or the drill ships. There's so many options, and that easily within reach if you've got good equipment and good people with you. Or you can hire a guide, and they'll show you. It's a magical place, man. I never get tired of it.
So off the coast of Mississippi, if you're coming from Louisiana and you're going from west to east, you have the Louisiana Marsh, and not far over further to the east, you have Cat Island, which you spend a lot of time at. We'll talk about that in a second. Then you have Ship Island, then you have Horn Island, then you have Petty Voice Island, then Dauphin Island, and then eventually you move over to further into the Alabama coast and eventually to Pensacola Beach. But sort of that's the barrier island chain that's off our coast. But if you leave Biloxi Bay, then head sort of like toward Ship Island, but you'll actually will pass a little bit to the east of Ship Island. You continue to head south. You'll come up on the Chandler Islands. Now you can either choose at that point to go inside the island and fish the grass beds, or you can stay on the outside where you can. I mean, some of the best wade fishing around is there. If you continue to go south, though, you eventually start to come to the oil rigs, and there's lots of blocks of incredible oil rigs off our coast. And once you get there, you're talking about red snapper and mangrove snapper and lemon fish and king mackerel fishing. We love to go spear fishing, so we do a lot of spear fishing. And then if you go further, if you come across a weed line, you get the opportunity to catch some dolphin and maybe some blackfish, or triple tail, the other name for them, or some lemon fish. Go a little further. This time of year, you go a little further. You go in the area vicinity of, say, the horseshoe rigs. You have the opportunity to catch some really, really big wahoo, don't you, Sonny?
You do, and that was one of my favorites, just because. I mean, just sheer boredom replaced by pure chaos. When you'd have a 4, 5, 6 line spread, if you were that brave, and one goes off, and then the other one goes off, and then sometimes all of them go off, and they're big, they're mean, they're fast, they're delicious. The wahoo fishing in winter is really, really hard to beat. Everybody loves it. It's run and gun. It's kind of like turkey hunting, where you're just not sitting still all day doing one thing. You're constantly moving and jumping around, rig hopping. And then when you find them, I mean, I've had good days, and I've had some amazing. The guy that trained me offshore, he was just furious with those wahoo and hated them. And we, in a good way,
Yeah.
But he had some days where we had to stop. There's just so many of them, and beautiful, beautiful fish. If you've never caught or eaten wahoo, something you need to really look into.
It really is. And I often describe, like, when you're king mackerel fishing, I'm going to compare king mackerel fishing to wahoo fishing. But when you're king mackerel fishing, and let's say you're sitting at a rig and you have a balloon line out, and a king skyrockets on, say, a live hardtail, and he's 15, 20 feet in the air, with that balloon, trailing behind him, and then once they hit the water, it's literally a ripping drag off your line. It's really super exciting, especially when you get into those really big king mackerel. But imagine like the biggest king mackerel going twice as fast. That's what a wahoo is, isn't it?
Yeah, they it's kind of unbelievable that something can move that fast in the water, and just whenever it wants. So, I mean, typically, we do a lot of trolling, or did a lot of trolling when I was there. And sometimes you were pulling stuff at speeds that you were like, there's no way a fish is gonna catch this. Not only catch it, but, put slack in the line, because it can outrun you with ease. But it was always, the coldest, roughest, nastiest weather. Maybe not the roughest, but the worst part of winter was the best part of wahoo fishing. So it was, but like you and I always talk, there's always something to do. Even in that, the worst part of winter, there's always something to do. So that's, wahoo are near and dear to me.
And then when we get to February, the big yellowfin start to come into the salt domes that are pretty accessible from coastal Mississippi. Again, they're somewhere in the vicinity of the horseshoe rigs, which are about 75 miles off our coast. And then There are a few more clusters of salt duns relatively near there. But you go and you just sit on top of the salt duns and you literally just chunk. You throw chunks of bonita or menhaden or whatever out, and you could catch a monster bonita. You could catch a mako shark. You could catch a wide variety of things, but you can also catch a huge yellowfin. I mentioned to you the other day, we had a trip where we caught a 135, a 145, and a 155 all on the same trip. And I, by the way, also caught a 90-pound amberjack on the same trip. That is a great trip, isn't it, buddy?
That sounds like a visit to the chiropractor, my man. That sounds. I hope you had some youngsters yanking on it. That's
when it pays.
Brutal.
That's when it pays to be the captain of the boat, man. You know, let the young backs do what they need to do. But you know, on a slick day, man, when you leave, usually you leave on a February morning. It's no wind and really foggy. Then you have to obviously have the electronics to do that, and then you get a little further out, starts to burn off. It becomes an amazing day. I mean, you might have a day where it's slick as glass the entire day. Even when you get home, it's still slick as glass. But on other days, it could be really, really rough. It just we always pick the days that are very slick before we go out. Anyway, when we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Captain Sonny Schindler. We'll talk about the backwater fishing during the winter times. Pretty amazing. So we'll see you after this break.
I said 3 Mississippi to this land called home. I'll breathe Mississippi till I'm dead and gone. Just carry on. I'll carry on. Mississippi.
Welcome back to SuperTalk Outdoors from right here at the Foundation Studio in Biloxi's Back Bay. And I'm thrilled to have my dear friend, Captain Sonny Schindler from Sure Thing Charters. And we're talking about everything coastal Mississippi fishing. In this segment, we're going to talk more about wintertime fishing. Sonny, it's Christmas time, man. It's a special time of the year, isn't it, buddy?
It is. But I mean, we're always you're always asking me the questions, but I never really get from you. I never get to ask you questions. So, like, where did your love for fishing in the outdoors come from?
Well, I mean, like a lot of people, man. I mean, my father loved to fish. My grandfathers really loved to fish. I was lucky because one set of grandparents lived in Birmingham, Alabama, and when they came here, my grandfather, Papa, was just completely obsessed with fishing. We used to go to a place called the Fishing Arena over on Back Bay, and we would fish inside. It would be air conditioned, and he would sit there and catch mullet all day long with little pieces of bread, and he loved that. And then my other set of grandparents owned a beauty salon on Cervantes in Pensacola. So we would go over, we'd rent the same house. My parents actually lived, when I was really young, we lived on Santa Rosa Island. And
Nice.
And so with my grandparents there, we would go back every summer and spend a long time. Listen, when I was a kid, and I look back at this now, my parents were pretty brave, but when I was like 8, 9, 10 years old, I'd leave the house like first thing in the morning and walk to the Pensacola Pier and just stay there all day long. They didn't know if I was alive or dead. But I'd stay there learning from all these incredible fishermen how to do pier fishing, sight casting to bonita or any number of other fish that were there, king mackerel. And I learned a lot about how to do drags and how to, the behaviors of fish when they pursued their bait by looking, from high up on that pier, looking down on them. And from watching these incredible, wise fishermen that I got to fish around. I did that for summer after summer after summer. And you know what? I can't remember his name, but my friend Farrell Allman of FS Allman's in Gulfport, he lived across the street from me. And Farrell's yard man for many, many years would finish doing the yard and then go back in the back with a cane pole and catch mullet. And I used to join him year after year after year. I fished with him, and I hate that I can't remember his name, but You know what? There's something about it. I used to fish the piers of Coastal Mississippi, Courthouse Road Pier and Moses Pier. And I used to watch the boats offshore and think to myself, I want to aspire to be to a level of success in my life to at least give me the opportunity to own a boat. And, so I was very focused on school, got my MBA, went to do an internship at the Sun Herald. Kind of the rest is history. And kind of moved up in the organization and was able to, thank God, retire young in the media business. But I was able to afford some boats and whatever along the way and introduce my kids to it. So now I'm passing it down to my kids. And it's powerful. I mean, in this Christmas moment, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, traditions are really important. And this passing to the next generation is so important. And now I have grandkids fishing with us. And, as you and I have said before, hunting is not about the shooting, and fishing is not necessarily about the catching. It's about the camaraderie that happens. It's like you talked about with Reed Geis. On a bad day, you can still have an amazing time with someone like Reed. And you think about your wife and your daughter and the times that you guys spend on the boat together. There's no trade-off for that in life, is there?
There's not. And, the big joke I always tell people is, there's 8 guides at work for Sure Thing. I'm one of 8. And I have no problem saying I'm the worst fisherman out of all of us, but I may be the best entertainer. I've never thought of myself as a good fisherman, but I think I'm a good guide. And that helps me with the people. If the fish are there, I'm going to catch them, but showing them a good time and not making it all about the numbers. I hate fishing for numbers. I just want to show people, especially if they've never been here, been on the water, been to Mississippi, showing them our town, fishing, close enough where you can point out, hey, that's St. Stanislaus, and that's Gulfport Harbor, and that's Cat Island, and being a good tour guide and fishing guide. Hopefully in the process putting a nice box of fish together, but giving them the experience, whether it's at Cat Island or on a 4-hour trip to the bridge, showing them a really good time, whether it's a 2-year-old or a 92-year-old, making their day memorable so they'll come back to Mississippi, come back hopefully to fish with Sure Thing, but making that memory, because like you, I had some amazing times on the piers, just like you did growing up here, that I still think about, that still, put a smile on my face.
Well, it definitely hooked me. But by the way, one of the things I didn't read in your bio is that I didn't read that you were not modest. You are the most modest person that I have ever talked to. Because whether I'm talking to our friend John Harrison from Hancock Whitney, or Chris Gurse, or Reed Geis, or whoever it might be, I don't think anyone has ever described you as a mediocre fisherman. You're a great entertainer for sure, but you catch fish too. You know a lot about it. But you know what? It helps you. It helps you when you've done that pier fishing and that wade fishing and that island fishing and that marsh fishing and that fishing off of Venice and the rig fishing. Because what happens over the years, you start to combine some of the techniques together. And the other thing is, you and I talked about on my show Coast View before, when you leave the coast, I like to say I'm loaded to bear because I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, we're ready for deep water. We're ready to do some spear fishing. We're ready to spend all day on a rip line if we find one. You sometimes you'll have a big envelope of blue water that will just kind of pass in close. And on one of those trips, man, we hooked a gigantic yellowfin. We missed it. Caught a wahoo. Caught a bunch of dolphin. And we were actually on our way to do some deep dropping and never made it because we just found this little envelope of blue water. But you leave loaded to bear, and when you're a captain like you are with all this different experience, it makes you ready for Freddie, doesn't it?
It does. And I it's fun to be out there and fishing new areas. I think that's what helps us more than anything is that the number of guides we have, they're really, really good, the guys I fish with. But checking out new areas, maybe not under the most ideal conditions, And then, Alex and I both did offshore. Matthew came from Chandelier. He worked on motherships. Kenny's our commercial fisherman. He did oysters, and he knows stuff that none of us know about, areas and leases. And then combining, the complex backgrounds that we have into this amazing fishery. You'd be blown away with a round table with these guys, figuring out, well, I like fishing that third point from the right on the island. And they go, well, no, there's an oyster bed there. You've never been there on a low tide? Yeah. If you fish a little bit, 5 feet out to the left, the trough's right there. And you know how much time we spend out there, and just to get enlightened so quickly. But a lot of that's just time. And
Yeah.
we've been very blessed with spending a lot of time on the water with some good people.
Yeah. I mean, time and experience. And you're right. I mean, I could tell someone, we could go have a great day of fishing, and I could tell someone this is where we fished, and then they can go there and catch nothing. Literally 10 yards would be the difference between catching something and not catching something. And over time, you just have to, just time. But like my son Jordan, he loves to roam around. Like if we go to Horn Island, for example, he is constantly walking, and if it gets deep, he wants to know how deep it gets and how long it stays deep, and is there a hole there, and then it's just is there a piece of structure there, and what is it, how is that different, how does that structure work when it's on high tide? Is it any better when it's on low tide? And just constantly putting this stuff into his database. But that's what you guys do, and you're sharing that information with each other, and it makes a great difference, doesn't it?
It does. And then to be able to pass that along to the charter, and it's fun. Some days they just want to go, watch that cork go under, and some days they want to pick it apart and go, you keep casting to that one little ripple, and then you explain, well, that's the current line coming over this bar. And to watch them pick it up and say, well, there's another one 20 yards down. Well, very good. So to be able to pass that along, I guess the old give a man a fish, teach a man to fish analogy, it works.
It really does. Hey, when we come back, join us for the final segment of Super Talk Outdoors with Captain Sonny Schindler. We're going to get really specific about if you were to come to coastal Mississippi, what kind of fishing is there to do this time of year? We'll describe it to you. It's pretty fascinating. We'll see you after this break.
With Ricky Mathews on Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors. I'm so happy to be joined by my friend, Captain Sonny Schindler of Sure Thing Charters. We're lucky in coastal Mississippi. We have this incredible collection of charter boat captains. And they work together really well, whether they work for the same company or not. An example is producer Cal Curley wanted to go with Sonny on a trip. Unfortunately, they were all booked up, so he gave the name of another guy who is actually competing charter boat company, and Cal had an amazing trip. But you say competing. At the end of the day, you guys really work together, don't you?
Oh, yeah. No, and Paul Leone with Southern Comfort, who took Kyle, he's fantastic. And we're for the most part under the stronger in numbers mentality. If we can just get people to the coast, they'll have a good time. They'll tell their friends, and I think there's plenty to go around.
Yeah. So so winter fishing in coastal Mississippi, what would someone expect? First of all, as I mentioned on the Coast View show, one of the things they might be surprised to learn is that in the winter time, when it's not super rough, the water is crystal clear. I mean, it's the water clarity and the rising salt water is really critical to a lot of the species that we fish for down here. So salinity of the water, now that those terrible rainstorms of the summer are behind us, Lord, we had a rough summer for that reason. But you got salinity in the water, incredible clarity. I mean, other than the cold, it's a beautiful time of year to fish, isn't it?
It's awesome. And like I said earlier, I hate cold. I mean, give me 90 degrees every day. I'll be fine. But as far as this time of year, redfish is the big one. The trout, we'll look for them as long as they are, as we like to say, dumb and hungry. Once it gets really cold and they get a little dormant, you've got to do that slow finesse fishing. If our customers aren't quite suited for it, it makes for a long day. So we want to go for the bent rods and smiles, as we always say. The clear water, the red fishing we've been doing has been insane. Some of the best we've seen in years. The water cleared up, but the big thing we're fighting right now is spooky fish, to where you can't. You see them. I mean, you actually see them, but the water seems to be so clear, and on these low tide days, we are having such trouble getting close enough to them where some of our more novice anglers can cast, that we've scaled down. I'm a big fan of the boat monkey corks, but we're putting them aside, even taking the lead heads off our lines and just throwing bare hooks and, like a minnow or a shrimp, something with some weight on it that doesn't make a big splash. Once they figure it in, and that's one of my favorite things, is to watch them get it, those redfish don't stand a chance. But the other big things is sheephead, big wintertime fishery. And, our guys clean all the fish. Most of the charter boats do. So that's the big complaint, love catching them, hate cleaning them. When, we're good at it. It's quick and easy. And
of course, sheep has really good eating as well. And the way you know you're spooking them is that you see this beautiful clear water, and then suddenly you see a mud trail, and all you see is the mud trail.
Oh yeah,
you've seen a few of those, haven't you?
More than I care to remember. But the bridges, the reefs, we'll start doing a lot more nearshore stuff just because of the fog and the weather and the possibility of weather. If it's a pretty morning, but the forecast is calling for something a little dicey in the afternoon, even though it's tough, we may not make the long run under those conditions. Cold, wet, and dark. With these early sunsets, we just assume play it safe and hopefully have a great day. And it has been great in close. I don't know. Are y'all doing good over in Back Bay in Biloxi?
Starting to see. We've seen a few specks arrive. Of course, redfish are here, so things are starting to really pick up. But it's interesting. It's deceiving this time of year, and it's also dangerous. So it's important to have someone who knows what they're doing, because if the time before a front comes in, it can be just a beautiful day, and suddenly that front rolls through, and you have a vicious north wind, and you just got to be really, really aware of that. That's why I think the backwater fishing is mostly favorable. I mean, you can go out and get back quick and get to safe areas quickly, but you have to be aware, don't you, Sonny?
You do, and it's not worth taking any risks this time of year. Always let somebody know where you're going. Bring plenty of water and food and warm, dry clothes. But just use your head. Play it smart. Always play it smart, safe.
We're coming to the end of our time together, but this has been Captain Sonny Schindler of Sure Thing Charters. If you're out and about duck hunting and deer hunting, be safe. Just keep your focus on safety. Actually, we had a very special safety edition of Super Talk Outdoors. Go to your favorite podcast and take a listen to that, just as a reminder of some of the basics. But have a great Christmas. We'll see you next week as we enjoy another edition of Super Talk Outdoors. God bless you. We'll see you next week.
Just carry